Peace, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're waiting for Hassan Hajjaj to show up. It's going to be a nice talk. My name is Yassine. Can everybody hear me well? Let me know if you can hear me well. What's good? So Hassan's here. We're going to start off fresh.
Yo.
Hassan!
We do this, the abstract, one up, one down.
Should I do mine sideways too? Yeah, let's do it.
I'll join you.
This might be better. Let's do it like this.
Yeah, TV style, old school.
Old school stuff. How are you guys holding up? I'm good, alhamdulillah. You can see you're right up there. You're at the top of the house.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Habibi. So
how's it going?
We're good. You know, at the house, quarantine, trying to stay creative and productive. You?
The same. You know, just trying to stay busy. We should have just played music for the crowd. We should have just done one track each all the way through. No talking.
Yeah, like a verses. You want to do that?
I mean, not me singing. You're gonna be with that.
I think we'll have time to play some music at the end. I'd love to like share some of your selections with the audience, but there's something about you that I don't know yet that I'm very interested in knowing. We're going to talk about your artistic process. Sure, we'll get there. But I think one of the most interesting things for me is people's origin stories. So, you know, where people are from and how they got to where they are. That first part of the journey is the most difficult, but the most important, in my opinion, right? So and I've been sharing my life with everybody on the Sarkar feed, so people know enough about me right now. I think I want to focus on...
Now we need to talk about you as well.
Yeah, you can ask me some questions.
Yes.
But what I want to know, Hassan, is where were you born? And when did you move to England in the journey of your life, you know?
So I was born in Larash, which is a small fishing port town in the north of Morocco. I came up, basically my dad came to England in the 60s, obviously for work. It was easy to get contracts, so there was a lot of men from my town that came here to support their families. And I think my dad realised in the 70s he wanted to have, I suppose, a better life for us, so we joined him in London in 1973. So the first 13 years I was in north of Morocco, between my town and my village where my family come from. So that was the first memory, you know.
What are your fondest memories of those 13 years in Larash? The simplicity of childhood.
Man, there were so many, being barefooted. You know, we grew up by the beach. You know, where I was born, back to the sea. So you know, I remember my parents would stand on top of it was kind of a cliff, and they would watch me go in the water and tell me, "Stay there, stay there." I think that kind of freedom, you know, it feels like it was a different world. You know, it was still traditional. You know, my parents came from the village, so we had to spend time there, and that was sort of, you know, there was no shops, no electricity, no toilets, hashakum. So there's, you know, so that was another lifestyle. So I really appreciate I've had those moments in life to appreciate everything I do now. So yeah, so it was a lot of, let's say, sort of extremes, you know, of ways of living. So, you know, to be by the beach one life, and then in the village, and then ending up in London, which is another experience.
When you got to London, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, now I was gonna say some memories. I remember, you know, we didn't have money, so we had to be creative. So we had like the season flying kites, which you have to make yourself. You know, you make everything. We had the season you play with the tops of the monada, was the tops of bottles of like Coca-Cola and Fanta. They were like considered as money, so we'll gamble with this. We had a season playing with like mishmash. What's mishmash? The fruit stone. So there was there was things where you had to get creative. Even in the summer, to go to the cinema, we would spend, me and my friends, maybe 3 or 4 days collecting this seaweed.
Wow.
That you would go and fill it. And then you get some pocket money. You might have to do like 3 or 4 or 5 bags of seaweed and sell it to get like a bit of money. And we used to go and watch Indian movies. 4 cinemas, 3 cinemas only played Indian movies, and 1 played like Italian, French, American movies. that was escapism in a sense. That was sort of entertainment.
And obviously, when you got to London in the 70s, I think, London is such a metropolis. Even back then, I think it was so bustling and is a center of the world, almost like a colonial hub, So like at 13, hitting a city like London, which is a very formative year in your life, you're discovering yourself as a boy. I'm sure you had a group of friends in Morocco that you had to leave and all of a sudden shift to this totally different reality in a metropolis city. What was that? Was that difficult on you?
Very much so. Imagine like you growing up in Technicolor, and then you put in some film noir, black and white movie. It was literally that kind of vibe.
Wow.
It was the weather change and different traditions. It was difficult because I didn't speak the language when I arrived, so I had to go to a special English school in the morning. So which means I missed all my secondary school. It was difficult because I was the only Moroccan kid at the school. I was the only Moroccan kid in the neighborhood. So which meant really I had to find my friends and make our own village. I always say this, we had to make our own village in the city. And there were lots of people that I became friends with had similar journeys. We shared something, being the outsiders in a new land. You're talking 70.
Where in London is this? Where did you move to in London?
Islington. So moved in Islington. It was tough. It was 7 of us living in one room. We didn't have a bath. We had a zinc bath. The toilet was in the back garden in the back. It was all, mainly men. It was owned by a Pakistani guy who rented all the rooms to mainly guys that had similar journeys to my dad. They would come and work. So they all shared the room to save money and share food. So we lived there for 2 years, 7 of us. So it was a bit hard trying to fit in, so, you have to kind of stick up yourself. And, I found myself with a nice group of friends that we had similar journey, mainly Caribbean, some Indian, some Chinese, Pakistani, so these were like we had something similar, we had coming from different tradition and we was the outsiders. And we had to sort of stand for ourselves in the sense of, being called names and stuff like that. So it was a moment of, I would say the first year was very tough, schooling, everything. But I think, as a kid, you adjust quicker. So, after a year, I started speaking basic English and found myself hanging out and, trying to find myself within this. And you say it's like finding yourself at that stage and age is not easy anyway.
Would you say that, Morocco is a very, for lack of better words, a very colorful place, a very artistic place with its own sort of issues politically. But when you get to a place like London, which is really connected to the music scene at the time in London in the 70s had a very pop sort of approach to, and then they had the punk rock. There was these two sides of the coin. But at the same time in America, hip hop was being born, and hip hop was, me and you have bonded over hip hop music a lot, but also I think the drum is the native instrument that transcends all of our cultures that ended up being a very central part of hip hop, right? So can you tell me what kind of art and music were you into in your early teens in London, and how that helped you sort of find your expressive voice that you ended up becoming the artist that you are today,
Well, I think, when I arrived there, it was that kind of difficult moment, fitting in. I grew up in Morocco listening to, obviously, Kultum and Farid Atlas and, all the local music like Jilala and, lots of sort of Moroccan music, also Spanish music. And then it was in Morocco in the 70s, it was a hippie, trendy thing. So, we'd hear like Bob Dylan and anyway, more of this kind of this type of music. And then when I arrived in London, I think I started to discover new music. And I think I remember the first time I didn't speak English, listening to Diana Ross and what's his name? Album, and it made me shiver. I didn't understand the word, and I had to take it off because it touched me. It touched my senses. And I think at that time it was really difficult because we didn't have any place to go. We didn't have the kind of music we want to listen to. environment. So we was really hanging out in the corners of the street because there was nowhere to go. We didn't have any. We had youth centres that was new in the 70s for people like us that are coming from outside, and most of them would be in churches. They would give us a night there. We would meet, and then my friend maybe start drumming and play pool. But what we did around I would say around 76, me and a group of friends, we convinced the guy who had a pool room in Camden, and we convinced him to give us the basement. He used it as storage. We said, give us the basement to do like Friday and Saturday as a party there. We'd clean it, paint it, and all that kind of stuff. And he gave it to us for a few months. And that was the beginning of my friend was a DJ, he was Jamaican. So, he was playing things like soul. I was big into reggae because reggae was around mid-70s onwards. It was massive. So that's the beginning. And through that, I discovered, sort of the jazz, the soul, then hip hop. Hip hop started to come really late, sort of, I suppose, late 70s. The early hip hop, like the Last Poets, people like that. I would say, the kind of originators of hip hop. And that really was like a journey. And by the time, I suppose, late 70s, we used to do parties. For about 1981 to 92, I was very active doing underground parties in London, putting bands on, DJs, promoting, finding space, illegal spaces, and there was a whole journey of that for about 11, 12 years.
Was your family still struggling at this point?
Sorry, you froze there. Sorry.
Was your family still struggling at this point in your late teens? Were they still kind of trying to figure out how to get their feet on the ground, or were things more stable in your family structure at that point?
No, it was difficult. I'm the oldest in the family. You have to remember, my dad came in the 60s, I think 66. I grew up in Morocco. I can't remember my father prior 73 much. I think he came to London twice. So I literally grew up with my mum, my three sisters, my auntie, and so there was an expectation me of doing well at school because
Ooh. So Hassan dropped out, guys. I think he's gonna rejoin us in a second. His connection seemed to be pretty bad. I think it might be the walls in London apartments, but he'll be back. I think that was an amazing start to our conversation. خلينا ننتظر شوي وإن شاء الله يرجع very soon. Thank you all for tuning in. I see all your comments. Everybody in here. Shout out to Z who's in here. Shout out to, let's get some names. Ben the Rules. Shout out to Sahar. Yes, Yahya, it's me, Yasin, Narcy. I'm hoping Hassan rejoins us in here sooner than later because I was really enjoying that conversation. And hey, Rand, what's up? Shout out my cousin Rand Abdul Jabbar, who's in here. And everybody sending Hassan requests to get jobs. Please stop. Thank you. Here, Hassan's back. All right, let's get it. Yeah, we're doing the sideways talk. We're doing the old school stuff. Hassan, so good you dropped out. You dropped.
My connection.
Yeah. It's the London walls. The Wi-Fi can't get through those thick walls in London.
They're listening to two Arab guys, one from Canada.
Yeah, no, it's not allowed. So
yeah, so I don't know where I was, but anyway, that was whatever we were speaking about. That was the story.
I remember when I first met you at Third Line in Dubai, and then I came to London to your atelier, to your space, and one of the outfits that I put on was this leather jacket that was really tight on me, but I loved it. It said rap on it, right? Yeah. So you told me a bit of the story at the time about this brand that you had started with your friends, but before I get to that, you were talking about high school and growing up in London. Did you end up going to university, or did you kind of stop the studies and focus mainly on the arts and being, creative in the streets?
No, I left school. That's what I think I cut out when I was talking about that. I left school at the age of 15, I'd stopped going to school for my last year, the last 6 months. And that's why I said my father found out and we fell out. And I actually left home at 16, 17. Then I had to find my way. I mean, that was the beginning. I didn't want to go back. I was too proud. I didn't see my dad for maybe 2 or 3 years before I went, sort of spoke to him direct, like trying to man up. So that was, so what was the question you said?
It was, how did you transition from being living with your family to on your own and like harness a creative energy to create this fashion line with your friends,
Well, I think it was a bit of a journey to that. So basically, when I left school, there was a period of time, maybe I tried different jobs at the beginning. I worked in Woolworths, which is a big store, for about a week. Worked in Timber Yard for about 3 months. I worked at the garden in the park that I loved, actually. It's a beautiful park called Hampstead Heath in London. What else did I do? I think that's it. And I think what happened, I was a bit confused and dazed and confused. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Most of my friends the same, because we're all coming from different backgrounds, all dropping out of school without going to university and stuff like that. And I remember the last straw was I had no money. I became unemployed for about six years. And the last time I went for an interview for work, it was literally going to work in the factory to pack up hats in boxes, basically. And I remember dressing up. I had enough money to get a bus there, but I knew I had to walk back. But if I get the job, I don't mind to walk back. I'd be happy. I went for the interview, and when I walked out there, I knew I wouldn't get it. Just I was obviously
the vibe.
16. Yeah, the body language. And that walk home, it was about an hour walk to walk back home, all dressed up, no money in your pocket. That was the moment I was like, pardon my language, F it, let me try and do something. So I think me and my friends, we just started to, this was coming into the 80s, and we found ourselves, we had nobody speaking for us, nobody designing clothes for us. There was no venues we can go listen to music. There was no places we can go eat the food we want, places to hang out. So all of a sudden, there was this new merge, what's now called the Melt in London. We started, so I liked clothes at that time, believe it or not. I know I probably don't look at it now. But, so I started, sort of had this idea. Beginning, I was doing the market, selling in Camden, like my friends' labels, like all these people that coming out of college, they didn't have anywhere to sell. And then I started buying stuff from New York. And then I started the, rap music was just coming in at that point of time. And then also you wrap yourself clothing. So I decided to start a label called Rap in 1984.
Wow.
And then, I had my sister, Vanessa, so there's a few people helping me at that time. And so it started that way as a shop, selling other products, bringing, fusing things like I started with selling Stussy to John Galliano to, street thing.
Where was that? Sorry, where was this in London, the shop?
This was in Neal Street in Covent Garden. This was before Covent Garden became trendy. It was like a back street, basically. I was really lucky. I was very lucky to get this shop because it became a very expensive street. Wow. And then I started making stuff of what my friends would wear and tagging it with the label. I'm not just technical designer, but more of an idea person. So I would find the fabric and go and say to the maker, make me this, blah, blah, blah. And then my shop became a hangout place. So I had in the basement, we had a record shop selling vinyl for DJs. We used to sell club tickets, for parties. So it became a really hangout place. I've done art shows there, created a few photography shows there. And then I met a friend of mine, Andy Blake, who was a stylist. He just started his career. He was borrowing some clothes from me. And then I started to become an assistant of, in his, photo shoots, catwalk shows. And then another friend of mine is is a great, he's my brother actually, Zach Ove. He was also starting his music videos. So the first 3 in London, I worked behind the scene, doing casting, doing the food, props, and all that.
Do you know what are the videos? Do you remember them?
It was Kim Mazel. Forgotten the other one, an American singer, and then he went on to do Murder She Wrote. The video.
Wow,
yeah. So
that's crazy.
I didn't make it to that when that was done in Jamaica. So then I had all this. Basically, I had all this with the shop. I was doing that during the day, and in the evening I was doing parties. So I was putting DJs on, doing bands. So I was doing day and nights. My shop became a focus point for people to come and meet and hang and stuff like this. And after a few years, I realized this was really my university. I was learning what I'm doing now. That was my schooling, because it was learning production, working with different people, having all these incredible artists that, you know, I'm allowed to work with around me, you know, from then onwards. But I was always somebody, never used my name, anything. I'd always come up with a name for something, you know, whatever it is. If it's a club, I'll call it Red, or, you know, the Lizard Lounge, and on and on. But I took it further. I used to go and find a venue, convince the guy to give me the venue, then I would book other promoters and DJs. So I would literally have like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with different things. So I was very active in London in this way for like 10 years. And then, as I say, doing the fashion and stuff like that. While I was doing this, I loved photography, so I would take pictures for myself, you know, nothing to do with work. And I had loads of photography.
This was a question I wanted to ask you. How did you get your first? What was your first camera, and how did you get it?
So in the 80s, I was always fascinated by photography. I loved photography. And then I would, you know, have the shitty camera, you know, snappy snap camera. I would take pictures of frames and stuff like that. But then in 1988, 89, I bought a camera from my friend Zach over there, who was a photographer then. He was doing videos, but I was also a photographer. He did lots of campaigns and stuff like that. And I remember it was a Pentax MX. He showed me how to use it. Another friend of mine showed me how to use it. I had a few friends show me how to use it. Basic. I don't know the names, anything like that, if you ask me. And then I remember in 1989, I thought, right, I'm going to do a shoot. I asked my cousin, and then in London, and then it was gel. Colours were trendy, you know, red, blues, and greens and stuff like that. As you can see in all of the videos in the 80s. So I set up a shoot with my cousin and a couple of friends. And that was 1988, like, you know, sort of making the effort, I'll call it. And then every now and then, I would make another effort, find some friends, a location, go and shoot. So I wasn't taking it serious, and then just it kind of started happening from there. And then as the mid-90s became, I was shooting more and more and more. And then I suppose by let's say late 90s, I had lots of work, but I've never showed any of the work. And I think in 2000, but I also was doing Moroccan, African, Arab. It wasn't cool, you know. When you say you're Moroccan Arab, it's like, oh, camel, hashish, and, you know, tagine, kaftan, you know, that's what would come in. But if you say Brazil, you say Pele, you say, you know, stuff like, if you say Jamaica, you say Bob Marley, you say Dennis Brown, and you know, go on and on in those countries. Morocco was trendy in the 70s, but it came out of trend, so it became like a hippie era. So I thought, because I was growing up with graffiti artists, photographers, all these creative people, I thought I wanted to do something for my culture to give. So the first body work in the 90s was about Arabic products. I took pictures off, I printed them on canvas. Photoshop was new then, so I played with Photoshop. I had a couple of friends helping me on this. And then I printed them up, and then I created a salon with it. You know, because I was collecting all these objects, and then it became Souk. And this was really what I was doing. I was bringing people into my space. They can listen to music, have some food, tea. So it was just an extension of the party time with my own backdrop. And that really, I didn't consider that as art. I consider it as something for my friends. And then it's sort of some of the artwork started to take notice of this, and Andy Weller was born from there. And the photography just kind of continued from there.
Were you in the 80s and early 90s, were you traveling out of London, or were you kind of in London for a majority of the time? Did you go back to Morocco? Did you visit the States, Jamaica? Were you getting inspiration from outside of the city?
Yeah, well, definitely from inside the city, because we had all this influence, you know, everybody around. So, you know, have influences from everywhere, and you can see that in my work. And you could see London and Morocco, but there's influence from outside. I was traveling a lot, probably not as much as now. But we went places like Brazil for about 4 months. I went a couple of times there. You know, Europe, America in the late 80s, early 90s. I was going to New York for about 10 years, maybe 3 to 5, 6 times a year. You know, I was bringing stuff, selling, because I had the rap shops. I was bringing stuff from New York, like all the original tapes to sell, you know, the DJ tapes we used to sell from New York. Yeah, so there was a lot of traveling, but it was more, you know, just, and Morocco, actually, it was a good question, because I didn't go to Morocco, I think, for about 7 years or 8 years. You know, just
After
got
you
lost.
left?
Oh, no, after I left, I went every year for about 4 years. And I think when I got to about 18, 19, I was like, I want to see the world. So anytime I had the money, I would just say, I want to go to Amsterdam, I want to go to Barcelona, Rome. So I'd do all those short trips, and I suppose educate myself and see the world. So and then that, you know, with the shop, doing the parties, traveling, he's just got lost in it. And when I had my daughter, I think in '93, I took her, you know, to see my family, obviously, and then it sort of just something happened with Morocco. I had this connection back with Morocco, and it sort of, you know, there was never a plan, but something always happened to be back there.
Well, that's my next question. You know, as a creative person, I know that there's like this phase that you encounter, where the public view of your work is very defined, and people kind of they feel your vibe, and they give you, the people perceive your image as complete, but in the background, not only are you sort of rummaging through all these creative ideas to create your vision, but also you're broke. You know, you're struggling. You might have more cultural currency than financial currency to sort of meet right in the middle and be fully productive. So in the early days of Hassan Hajjaj or Andy Wahlu, like when you were creating your, for lack of better words, your brand or your image, you know, were there moments where you were like, oh, F this, I can't do this anymore, I'm exhausted, like I don't know if I should pursue the arts anymore? Were there ever moments where you felt like you were gonna break down and can't do it anymore? And how did you deal with those moments?
You know, you know, so yeah, I think me doing, you know, I came into the art world not knowing, being naive in a sense, not having education about the art or the history or how the art world works. I was really lucky. It was Rose Issa who really put me out in the art world. You know, she's the one who had built my work and introduced my work into the, you know, the, let's say, the art arena. But after I did the first show, it was well perceived. You know, I had good support from, you know, our sort of culture outside. All my kind of friends, people seem to dig the work and see something different, familiar. And you know, and I'm sure probably the same as you know, when you do your first album, you have to do your second album. There's always a little bit of pressure, what to do. And at the moment of that, because also prior to this, it took me about 2 years to feel comfortable with the word artist, because, you know, I wasn't too sure if it was just a moment, or, you know, if something else is inside me. So I didn't want to call myself an artist until I had to prove something for myself within that. So I think this really came with time, thing. And then I had a moment of this thing I was saying, like, let's say the second album, and I decided, you know what, just stick to what you know. Don't try to be too smart. Don't, you know, just do what you thought, you know, what people got noticed. Just stay in that kind of zone comfortably. Push yourself within that. And that sort of, I went on that, and always in the back of my mind, I always say, you know, if I get tired of it, I should stop. You know, if it becomes too much,
A burden.
lose that passion. It's a thing. And to be honest with you, you know, the journey's been, I would never imagine what's happened that, you know, was happening to me, you know, if you asked me 10, 20, 15 years, 20 years ago, because it wasn't meant to be. I came in without no, what you call it, no expectations. No expectation. And the more I think, oh shit, it's happened, and I've kept that in my mind somehow. Not, you know, because you don't know, and it's also like how to become, you know, how do you become relevant with time, you know, with to stay there and stuff like that. And this was a good moment for me also, I had Rose Issa, because though I was doing my shows of graphics from the souk, I had, when I went to show my photography to Rose, I think it was in early 90s, she's, you know, I just asked her curiosity what she thought, because she's working with intellectual artists and, you know, all the museums and galleries, and she's a friend. And I remember walking in with a bag full of, you know, contact sheets to show her. And she said to me, she looks at them, she goes, oh, wow, Hass, you know, you got about 5 years worth of shows there. If you want, you could just stop and we can just do shows for the next 5 years. That wording, because I was shooting for many years to show that. I mean, I shot for maybe 7 years before showing that work to her. So it was just there. I felt I had something, but I wasn't too sure. So when I came out of that conversation, I remember ringing, because she's a friend of Amina Anabi. She goes to me, oh, shows, and then I was like, what? She's asking me, you know, because I've looked at her as very, very high in the art world. And I remember ringing Amina, I said to Amina, Rose asking me to do shows. Is she really being real, or she's somebody speaking? She goes, no, just follow her. I thought, right, I need now to go and do work really hard to have like another 5-10 years worth of shows. And that was really the big lot, because then it meant I've always got work to pull out. You know, I've done work with something new. You know, people, a lot of galleries will say, what do you have new? I'm like, not that kind of thing. If it's a body of work, sometimes it takes me 10 years to finish it as a story. Yeah. So that was a good tip for me. And I took that and ran with it and worked hard.
What was your first show that you did?
I mean, I've done many shows prior to my photography. You know, I was doing graphics from the souk from, I think, late 90s. I've done London, Essaouira, Marrakesh a couple of times. You know, then I've done the Paris Andy Wello bar with the same body of work. So I've done Africa Remix. I was doing loads of stuff, but it was more like objects and stuff like that. Not really sharing the photography. The first photography show, I showed it in 96 in the Third Line Gallery. I think they just opened up a few months before. So thank you, Sonny, because I got Sonny via Rose.
Shout out to Sonny.
So Sonny's also, you know, there's so many people being in part of, you know, I'm talking about myself, but, you know, there's always a team, there's always people that unlock the door for you. Sonny's been a major one for me because we're still working together now. She's a friend. So that was the first show, you know, and that was in Dubai in 96 or 97.
Wow. You know, when I met you was actually at Third Line, and they had a retrospective show, and some of your work was there. My friend Farah introduced me to you, and I had seen your work in passing, but when I met you and then I started researching your work, I was just floored by it was like the visual marriage of what we as young North American Arabs were trying to create sonically with music, but it was like the perfect meeting of the two worlds that we grew up in. And it didn't feel like in the moment. It felt almost like jamming 30 years of history and then 30 years in the future into this one sort of platform. And you did the image for my album for World War Free, which is right here. When I came to London, we did a big shoot with Omar Effendim, who was there with me as well. And how did you know, I was wearing a sajada suit, like my suit was made of a sajada, and Omar, you put him in a suit that's made out of the comforters that we sleep in, the really warm sort of comforters that you find in the Arab world in big plastic bags. So, you know, how did you come to find this this image, like this feel of, you know, what was it that created your style at the end of the day? What are the inspirations behind it?
I think, you know, it's all the stuff that I did before, what I spoke about, you know, being, I suppose, what so-called fashion, music, doing parties. I think probably had an understanding of this. And I think, you know, I was going along trying things. I think then, you know, when you start to have, you know, people say style, I suppose I was also, at one point, it depends on my outfits that I'm designing. Sometimes, like when you know, when we'd done the shoot together, it was great because for me that suit was made out of Arabic carpets, so it you're the best person to present it, and you got this, you know, it talks in that kind of thing. It's got that kind of our region, but it's hip hop, it's swagger. Omar, thank you for introducing him. He was a great, you know, he's become a great friend. And for me, remember that he'd done two
Of
outfits.
course.
He'd done the blankets. Also, I thought
The
what we both
flags.
doing, the flags, the Arab flags that I made into like a jaleba, so it's presenting Arab world. So for me, it was a time feel, and it's like, you know, sometimes things happen naturally in the sense of, you know, that suit, I couldn't maybe have anybody wearing it except you. So the same as Omar for what he's presenting. And I think there's moments where these things happen. I mean, you know, it's like you said, what you do musically, I'm trying to do visually somehow. You know, Morad Momo's doing it in food ways. And there's this kind of notion, and it's sort of, you know, and also the social media was new to connect people. And it's nice to see that the younger generation are really running with it, you know, like, you know, as you know, you can see hip hop and the Arab culture has become, you know, more popular. Huge, there's great lyrics, great videos, so, you know, great personalities. So I think it's, you know, it's just, you know, happened that way. And I think within that, and I suppose, you know, with the framing and the style and, you know, all this kind of stuff, I suppose it becomes a style in the sense. I think that's what I suppose people would see as style. But, you know, I'm always trying to design stuff. It could be a textile that can give me an idea. And as you know, when you come to my space, there's always loads of stuff. So I'll go with the feel of the person who I'm shooting and try to create it there and then. Or the day before, I sit and do my sketching and work out what that person should wear, and trying to have a few outfits because they need to be comfortable, you know, at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, for me, when I put on that suit and took the photos and then left London, and then when you started sending me, I knew that I wanted to make an album spread out of it, and because it was a very defining moment for me in my career. I had just had my son. We had just moved back to Canada after a failed attempt to move to the Emirates and settle there, because I started feeling like it was business over culture
Okay.
in the arts industry, and I felt like that hole that Montreal always filled, like that inspiration in the street that I feel, that I'm sure you feel in London as well. So it was it was a stamp for me in my career. It was when I knew this was what I was meant to do, because I met people like you who had set the template and were still working as hard as I was working in my 20s to get to a point where I felt like I was making it, you know? When in
Well, I
your
think,
career, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
go on, sorry. No, go on, sorry.
When in your career or in your path did you feel like, oh, I think I've made it, you know, like I've arrived and now I just have to keep it going, or have you not felt that yet?
I mean, I'm not the best person when it comes to compliments and stuff like that, because, you know, I always try to keep myself busy and be on the moment, then look back and say this. But, you know, saying that, you know, being locked down and you can have better reassess. I mean, there's so much there that I would never dreamt of, in a sense, you know, that's happened as a journey. I mean, I couldn't ask anymore, you know. I mean, it just, I couldn't even plan it myself.
No.
But I think, you know, saying like what you're saying, I think it's important as well, people to know that you're a hard-working person. You know, when I met you, you know, you have to remember things happen sometimes with energy, timing, and I was really surprised. That's why I always said to you, you should do acting, because when I saw you in some of the videos and some of the stuff you did, for me, you're beyond just a hip hop artist, or you know, there's a lot there. And so for me, it was not, you know, it's always nice when you be part of something that's happening. So I'm saying, it's not, I don't want to call it a movement or stuff like that, but there's something happening there. And it's nice when you this kind of moment in your life, and they become the important. They're more important sometimes just than the art, because you're pushing, you're, you know, doing stuff. I'm doing my side and trying to create and hopefully influence some other generation and you know, stuff like that. So it's something that, you know, you don't have to thank me or thank you, because you really gave me the image as well. And for me to be also part of your world, to present that picture on your album, it's, you know, it speaks a lot of words, you know, for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've always felt is our two generations have been writing the book. We're just writing the book for the next generation to have a survivor's guide on how to be creative. And you know, it expanded so much of my awareness of the importance of visual art, meeting you. And obviously I grew up around, you know, around Sundus, who handled a lot of the visual arts in my life, and watching her as a visual artist and struggle with the arts industry and then pull back and become a full visual artist. I started meeting people and saw the importance of that forward facing image is what people take in first. And so much information can be put into that image, and create transference of culture that doesn't exist in any other form of art, you know. And now that I see your work on the cover of major magazines around the world, you know, I went to the pharmacy and I saw the Billie Eilish magazine that you had, and I wanted to tell everybody, I was like, yo, I know that guy who took that photo. Like it's reached a point where, you know, you've done Cardi B, Billie Eilish, you've done sheikhs and people that are high up in like power positions. You've done Riz Ahmed in London. You've done so many people that are, your bubble has expanded so big into this creative sphere. Is there anybody that you haven't taken a photo of yet that's on your wish list that you wanna take photos of?
Yeah, and you know, you'd be surprised. It's not the celebrity type of people. So I mean, for this, what you said is an important thing, because this has happened the last few years. But I always have to say, and you're part of this journey. For me to be recognizing that, you know, for these people to have pictures taken, it's the people that have taken pictures of that picture there. You know, it's like, let's say it's created like a world that people maybe wanted to be part of this.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the important journey. You know, this, you know, all this kind of thing is almost like testing the fire. You know, I'll question myself, why am I doing it? Well, you know, is it the right thing to do? But, you know, I'm a visual person. You know, the things are sometimes I want to go out of my sort of, let's say, my neighborhood to go to another area to take. And it's been, yeah, it's been, I mean, sometimes I think, did that really happen? You know, but I try to really sort of, you know, think too much about them and stuff like that. It's just kind of moving. But, you know, the people I want to take, you know, like I saw my friend today, Robert, I've been trying to take pictures 3 years. He's a Jamaican friend. And for me, that's my home. You know, you have to remember, when I took the Cardi picture in New York, you know, it was good, it went well, and, you know, delivered the job, let's say. And I came back and I just felt something needed to happen. And I ended up meeting this group called Call through a friend of mine who helped to style the shoot, Harris. And, you know, that was presented to shoot them. That was the first time in London. And he was like coming back home. So, you know, so it depends. It depends. But I'd say with, you know, all these type of celebrity people, you know, I'm going with it to see. And then that, I think the last shoots I did, which was Vanity Fair, was like all these big DJs, most of them I didn't know their names. Like Steve Aoki, you know, I saw his documentary. It was Marshmello, you know, I shot Marshmello, I shot, what's her name, Paris Hilton. All these kind of people that was like totally, you know, it's another world. And I'm like, why am I shooting them? You know, this is the thing. But so when I came from there, that body of work now starting to make sense, you know, because I've never really showed any celebrities in my shows with my work, because I was do that person will overshadow the rest of the show, and he's going to want to ask about that picture, the press want that picture to show, the interview going to talk about that. So I decided not to show any celebrities in that kind of, you know, for me, that's why they call my rock stars, and you're one of them. You're my celebrities in that kind of way. But
that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
What makes you say no to a project? Do you have like a rubric that you follow, that if it doesn't fit, because, you know, sometimes you might feel like somebody is juicing Moroccan culture and they don't have any context in it. So like, what makes you say, I'm not going to do this?
I think things like, if I had to do a fashion shoot with a model, I'd say no, you know, because it's not my world. You know, I always say get a fashion photographer. I'll always try to shoot the way I shoot. with my team, you know, the same way, you know, and it depends, you know, like I shot David Guetta while I shot you outside my shop, for example, you know, and I'm sure David Guetta shots regular and big studios and stuff like that. So I try to stick to what I know, not trying to be too clever. And also feel the vibe, you know, it's like, you know, who to shoot. I've missed some great people like George Clinton, almost shot him. There's been some great people like that. It was just timing, being away, you know, I'm in the middle of something. So there's been a few people that I would have died for in that kind of way. That didn't happen. But as I say, I was, you know, I just things came. I would never believe Billie Eilish. You know, I mean, I didn't even know who she was. I mean, until I, you know, heard the song, and I was like, "What's happening?" You know, it's like another, and it's great. It's all these icons, different ones, and I think it's nice for somebody like ourselves also to hopefully open up doors, you know, for other people from different parts of the globe to do, you know, to be able to have an opportunity. So I always have to look at that as well, and trying to have some heart within the picture.
And what are you doing? What are you doing now that, because you know, your work travels. Your work is very much like a traveling timepiece. It's not a regional place. Like you said, you created a world that's an amalgamation. It's like a time portal of all these different countries and cultures. So now that you're kind of in lockdown in London, although I'm sure you can go to your studio and work, what are you working on? What are you working on now, and how are you dealing with not moving? Because I'm getting antsy now.
It's hard. It's really hard not to be moving, because I think when you move, there's an addictiveness to that. Horribly to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody just wrote to me. I need to speak about at some point about the refugee camp.
Yes,
in,
please.
Beirut.
Yeah.
No, I've been. Be honest with you, I was on the way to Morocco, and 2 days before I was traveling, you know, shut down. Been in London, just sort of adjusting, trying to stay positive and healthy. It was a really bizarre. All my shows, everything got stopped. But I had one show that's supposed to open up in South Korea in July, and they still wanted to do it. So today we just shipped the stuff. So I was busy with that in the studio with my team.
Wow.
And then another show I was supposed to have in Bristol in April that closed. They having it in 31st of July. So I'm shipping that on Friday. But the other project I'm working, I mean, I'm doing this tea brand at the moment in Marrakesh. So I've been working on that the last 6-7 months. And this idea is trying to create a tea that comes with music and art, if that makes sense. So that would be nice to be at home and working on that. So we're building the website and tea flavors, and I will be speaking to you about it, because the idea is while you have a tea, you listen to a track. You know, so it's like an app you go into and you listen, you know, and the tea will have the mood of the song. So I've just got a friend of mine to want one of his albums to thing. I've just done Kamal. So I've been active, been lots of calls. I'm sure the same as you. That's really warmed me
Lots
out.
of calls. Yeah, big time.
A new way of working. That's quite tiresome because I'm normally quite physical. But yeah, been basically doing just that, and just trying to see, you know, trying to get back to Morocco. I'm trying to book ticket up today, yesterday, and it's just kind of very confusing. So that's really so that's really something.
I saw some pieces that you're working on now with the construction tape around it. Is that was that you?
Yeah, no, it was just a friend of mine, Evan, who works with me on graphics. I did asked by Vogue at the beginning to do a lock-up story, and it was the first week I shot my daughter because I was locked up with her, and it came out last week. So it was just because, you know, you have this yellow and black as a warning kind of thing. So I just played with that. We just really played. I shot with the mobile, just kind of trying to playing with, you know,
Amazing.
make it keep it.
Someone asked us about the refugee camp. You want to share that project with us before we wrap up?
Yes, that was incredible. Is it El Halwa?
Yeah.
Rani asked me, I think Elsie did the first one. There's these women that have a setup in the refugee camp that do embroidery. And every year Rani asks one of the artists to give 10 pieces of work. and they work on them by you know, they basically you give it on canvas and they do it by embroidery. And there's most of the percentage goes to them, a small percentage goes to the artist, to help the women with their setup, because they have a space there, they work and stuff. And I was asked to, after El Cid, I was asked to do the next one. So I presented, I think, 8 or 9 pieces of work, which they did. And then they were going to show it in Dubai, in the art fair. But I thought it was also a little bit, you know, all these women stuck there, you know, it'd be nice to do something on them. So I put a proposal, me, Jenny, and my team went there, and we shot the women. They were incredible. They invited us at home, big house. So it's an unfinished project, because actually why I wanted to do this project, if Rania is listening, I wanted to print the women's pictures and give each one of them the picture to work on themselves. Trying to show that in Beirut, so they can come to a gallery, because they've never been to a gallery, because all the work always goes to be shown in Dubai, and they can't come out of the they can just about come out of the refugee. So that was the next plan, but it's obviously everybody got busy and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was a very, very special moment, and an incredible experience to be going, you know, Beirut, and then you're going to refugee and you need a passport to go into a neighborhood. That was yeah, that was, you know, to see people walking around with guns and you know,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that was shocking for me, in a sense, you know.
Well,
yeah,
you know, we live in a crazy world, a crazy time right now. I think we're gonna come out of this, inshallah, healthy and with a new sort of mission to be more connected. I think as much as this pandemic has disconnected people physically, I think when we come back to physical existence amongst each other, we're going to be more appreciative of those moments. Not that we weren't, but I think more than ever, we're going to be grateful for every moment and try to be in the moment. And Hassan, I want to thank you for everything you've contributed to the culture. You've contributed to my life.
I need to do one on you. I need to be asking you the question to get to know you.
I'm telling you, I had a lot to ask you, so we'll do another one, inshallah, soon. But
so anyone listening want to do one with Narcy? Yes, let me know.
Let's do it. Kiss the family for me, bro. And we'll be in touch. You know, me and you are talking, so inshallah we get the stuff off the ground and make some magic together.
Yes, definitely. Are you gonna play music? Are you off?
You want to play some music? You have anything?
Let me see. I'm just gonna sing you. Let me see. Let me play maybe a tune.
Yeah, Morocco's popping right now. I mean, not that it wasn't, but Morocco is very popping with music right now. I mean, the young sort of auto tune, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really something happening. I'm gonna play you this tune. This is like one of the first thing I bought. You know, I think in probably late 70s, a reggae track. And I love the album cover. It's called Dr. Alimentado, and it's called Best Dressed Chicken in Town. And
Best Dressed Chicken
in Town, yeah. See if I can.
I'm gonna Google the cover. Best Dressed Chicken in Town. I see it.
Huh? Yeah, that's the one. And for me, this is what made me fall in love with photography. A picture like that.
Really?
Yeah. Nice one.
Thank you, Hajjaj, man. Love you, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll speak soon, yeah?
Yeah, brother. Take care of yourself and the family. Be safe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, man. Take care.
Salam.
Salama.